No, you've hit on this a little bit in terms of the differences with the storytelling aspect of meeting with new media versus traditional media. Are there any types of specific stories, be it a feature, which it sounds like it might be, or news, or maybe a little bit more controversial, like any type of story that you really do feel like, I'm going to hold that for a new media outlet? Like, I don't think that story will work for you, TechCrunch, New York Times, whatever, but for a new media, I think this could land quite well. Is there any examples that you have of that, or any sort of insights that you have for the audience on that one?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have two examples of when I've chose to do that. I was working with a former CEO, former retail CEO, currently advising, and it was during the uh, holiday rush, Black Friday, all of that time. Knew it would be harder to secure traditional press because this person is not currently an executive at a major brand, and you've got everyone from Amazon, to Walmart sharing their predictions. So we actually focused on two things. One, we did a video on social. So I said, go get your hair and makeup done, and go find the nearest mall, have some Christmas decorations in the backdrop, and share your predictions on this holiday season. And then I said, then we're going to pitch it to a handful of Substacks, and I want the Substack to be the one to tell the story. Well, not only did the video as an owned moment get over 200 likes and 10,000 views, but then we were able to secure coverage in a Substack. In this instance, Baggable, which is Parisia Cavalan's newest shopping Substack, which is fantastic. And that actually spawned interest from other media trades, like a Retail Dive, interested in perspective from my client as well. So I would say if you are working with a startup or an advisor or someone who's kind of interim, it makes sense to kind of focus on that owned and shared and Substack role. I feel like Ginny is going to have to update her peso model, which is like paid, earned, shared, and owned, which
Hmm.
I love, Ginny. It's fantastic. I use it all the time. I'm obsessed with it. And I think comms professionals need to always be kind of firing on all cylinders. But is it shared versus social versus Substack, right? Like,
Mm,
is it, where do we have the P and the V and all of that in there? Because truly that new media model is changing. And she'll probably say, well, you can get some paid sponsorship, and you get, earned. You do pitch them through earned, but the power of being able to create your own
yeah.
press and content. I mean, right now, LinkedIn is the hottest platform. It has emerged over the past few years, but it is becoming the media platform. I remember when
Right.
I was at a major brand, and we were trying to, we had a narrative that we wanted to get across, and I called up the New York Times op-ed editor and said, I've got this story. I know you typically don't talk to CEOs and executives, too self-serving, but I really think it's a good story. She connected me with the tech opinions reporter at the New York Times. We got pretty far, but ultimately it was, again, too self-serving. You really were only going to get the brand name, in the title, and it wasn't going to go anywhere. So we ended up doing a LinkedIn article. We could have done Medium. We could have done a contributed piece, whether it was, Forbes or one of those. But we ended up doing a LinkedIn article because it was a guaranteed word for word, on brand, on message piece that honestly the CEO wanted. We didn't want to abbreviate. We didn't want things to get cut. We didn't want to not include sections. We wanted that, and it allowed for the CEO's incredible following, to be seen by all his followers, and the shareability on LinkedIn. We had a whole organic social strategy that we amplified it. I was in touch with the LinkedIn editorial team to flag it, give them the heads up. They work through all the back end details on their end. And it continues to be a really popular way to do things. So
Yeah.
outlets like Authority Magazine, it's entirely on Medium. So you're still getting the publicity, but there's much more freedom and fluidity and the ability to get the coverage there. You're still getting the same SEO, you're still getting the same headline, but it's on Medium. So there's a little bit more
Right.
flexibility there.
I love that example. And getting into the nitty gritty of it, when you did your first post with, I think, the female retail CEO,
Yep.
right, who was at a newer company. When she posted that on LinkedIn, that video, were you tagging journalists on there to take a look? Were you taking the video, the link from LinkedIn, and sending it to media? Were you doing that much, or did she already have a bit of a media following on LinkedIn that you had built up together? Like, how, if you get into the weeds,
Yep.
how did you really spread that
Great
far and
question.
wide?
Great question. I would not recommend tagging multiple journalists because obviously they're competing. So, it's like, hey, wait a second, you just kind of tag all of us. But I did send it to journalists. I actually
Yeah.
took the LinkedIn post after it, went, and I said, I went to Parisia, and I went to, a few other reporters. Parisia bit, and I offered her kind of the exclusive interview just to kind of give her a little bit more. And then we did other conversations as well. But I love the idea of using that to spark the conversation, right? Now, I don't want to say back in the old days, but oftentimes if you spilled something on social, reporters were like, okay, the news is out. I have nothing to share. Now what we're seeing is actually if things start getting really interesting and heavy attention, that is causing some additional interest, right? Like you're seeing all of this discussion on DEI, like who's talking about it? I need sources. I need this. Elf Beauty came out, does a story on DEI with Nathaniel Meyerson at CNN. We had reporters coming left and right asking how to connect with Elf Beauty and if there's other sources.
Mm,
People want, to be part of those different conversations. So with the social media posts, yes, I let it fly. I let it, pick up a lot of traction. And I did take that link and pitch it to a handful of Substacks as well as trade reporters saying, hey, these are the insights. We're getting a lot of engagement on it. She's got more to say. Do you want her to share
yeah.
some additional color? And then once we got some interest, we kind of gave them, that exclusive additional content that she wouldn't have provided in the 2-minute video, or through the 300-word write up. Which is
Right.
another thing too that I think PR folks are going to start experimenting with. We still can't let the cat out of the bag in advance and then expect all media to cover it. Some traditional reporters will hold tight on, you've now shared the news, there's nothing for me to break to the reporters. But the new media, they actually want to talk about what people are talking about. I have a
Right.
good friend, Anne Marie Alcantara at the Wall Street Journal. She covers internet culture at the Wall Street Journal. And I've pitched her so many times and worked with her on great stories, but she'll often say to me, I'm following what's trending. I want to see what people are talking about. She follows TikTok. She follows like all the latest trends. She actually just did a great story on how people are, finding fame and money on LinkedIn, which is kind of the new
Mm,
de jour, if
yeah.
you will. Eleanor
Yeah.
Hawkins from Axios has covered that. As well,
Yeah.
just kind of that rise of B2B creators and the rise of LinkedIn as the platform. So I think with new media, there's going to be that healthy balance of creating that own social moment, or breaking news on a Substack, or breaking news on a podcast, or using a podcast, even like seeking clarity. Cut this up into a few different pieces. Whenever there's a conversation or a hot topic or a cultural moment, you've probably got content for one of those, and you can actually bring
Hmm.
back 6 months from now when there's something talking about, why are people still calling it podcast when it's vodcast, videos everywhere. Let's track
Right.
back to this and we can talk about that. And I think that's one thing that you'll see more is just that absolute integration and overlap of the content that you're getting on, both earned media, but then also with, traditional, non-traditional, and social media.
Yeah. You're right. It has been so interesting to see how LinkedIn has just developed into what it is now, and it really has become the place for the place for influence B2B influencers and creativity. And I think that point that you make about really utilizing that platform and almost having that work with traditional media and other new media outlets, just being creative ourselves and how we approach it is going to be so important for us,
Absolutely.
for us PRs.